Across the windswept plains of the Arizona Territory, 1870, a young orphan's scream pierced the stillness of dawn. Clara Bennett, barely 16, watched helplessly as ruthless bandits torched the stagecoach station that had become her only refuge. With nowhere to run and no one to protect her, she was dragged away into a life of captivity. Her pale blue eyes, once bright with hope, now reflected only fear and desperation. Miles away, Tahoe, an Apache warrior with scars both visible and hidden, tracked the bandits' trail with unwavering determination. What drove this fierce warrior to risk everything for a white girl he'd never met? Would Clara find more than just rescue in the arms of a man from a world so different from her own? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Clara Bennett clutched the silver locket around her neck, her thumb tracing the worn engraving as she had done countless times before. Inside lay the only image she had of her parents, a small, faded daguerreotype taken just weeks before cholera swept through their homestead. At 16, memories of them had grown dim, like shadows at dusk. What remained clear was their final day, her father's rattling cough, her mother's fevered whispers, and the promise that God would provide. God's provision had come in the form of Martha and Samuel Whitaker, an elderly couple who operated the Dry Creek stagecoach station. They had found her hiding in the barn 3 days after her parents passed, half-starved and delirious with grief. Without children of their own, they took her in without hesitation. The Lord works in mysterious ways, Martha would often say, her gnarled hands guiding Clara's through the motions of kneading bread or mending torn shirts. Sometimes the family you find is stronger than the family you're born to. For 6 years, Clara had lived in their care at the remote station, 20 miles from the nearest settlement. The daily routine never varied: rise before dawn, prepare food for incoming passengers, tend to the small vegetable garden, mend whatever needed mending. Samuel taught her to shoot a rifle and handle the station ledgers, while Martha ensured she maintained her reading and writing. Education is something no one can take from you, Martha insisted, preserving Clara's childhood books and encouraging travelers to leave behind any reading materials they'd finished. Clara treasured these books, especially a collection of poetry from England and a tattered copy of Jane Eyre that had been read so many times the binding had separated. At night, she would read by lamplight, imagining a life beyond the dusty station, perhaps back east where her father had once mentioned distant cousins lived. Signs of trouble began the previous autumn. Fewer coaches arrived, and those that did carried whispers of increased bandit activity along the route. Samuel took to keeping his shotgun closer at hand, and Martha stocked extra supplies in the root cellar. Just a precaution, Samuel assured Clara when he caught her worried glance. Been running this station 30 years, seen all manner of trouble come and go, but this trouble didn't go. 3 weeks ago, a coach arrived riddled with bullet holes. A wounded driver slumped over the reins. The passengers had been robbed, but mercifully left alive. The driver, before succumbing to his wounds, warned of a new gang led by a Mexican called Vicente Diaz, a man rumored to have been a soldier before turning outlaw. "He don't just rob," the dying man had whispered. "He takes what he wants and burns the rest. No witnesses, no mercy." After that, no more coaches came. Samuel sent word to the cavalry at Fort Buchanan, but with Apache troubles to the north, it was unclear when help might arrive. Each night, Clara would read from her family Bible by candlelight, finding comfort in the worn pages her mother had once touched. The night before the attack, Clara had been unable to sleep. A strange stillness hung in the air, as if the desert itself were holding its breath. She sat by the small window of her room, staring out at the moonlit landscape. In the distance, she thought she saw the flicker of campfires where none should be. At breakfast, she mentioned it to Samuel. "Probably just Apache hunting parties," he said, but the tightness around his eyes betrayed his concern. "Stay close to the station today, Clara. No wandering." That evening, Martha pulled Clara aside and pressed a small leather pouch into her hand. "Keep this with you," Martha said, her voice low. "It's not much. Some coins I've saved and your mother's wedding ring. If anything happens. She paused, her weathered face solemn. You run. You hear me? You run and you don't look back. Clara had nodded, tucking the pouch into her dress pocket, not fully understanding the weight of Martha's words or how soon they would prove prophetic. That night, she added Martha and Samuel to her prayers, a sense of foreboding making sleep elusive once again. In the gray light before dawn, the first shots came. The first shot shattered the kitchen window, sending glass shards flying across the wooden table where Clara had been setting out breakfast plates. Samuel reacted instantly, pushing her to the floor. Bandits! He shouted to Martha, who appeared in the doorway, her face ashen. Get to the root cellar. Now! Samuel grabbed his shotgun from behind the door. Martha clutched a hand-woven shawl around her shoulders, pulling Clara toward the trapdoor hidden beneath the braided rug in the pantry. Outside, men shouted in Spanish and English, their voices brutal with anticipation. What about you? Clara cried as Martha yanked open the trapdoor. I'll be right behind you, Samuel answered, though his eyes said something different. Go! Clara descended the ladder into darkness, Martha following more slowly, her arthritic hands struggling with each rung. The cellar smelled of earth and potatoes, the air cool and damp. Martha pulled the trapdoor closed above them, and they huddled together in the darkness, listening to the chaos erupting above. Gunfire erupted, followed by the crash of breaking furniture and men's laughter. Samuel's shotgun boomed twice. Then came a scream that froze Clara's blood. Martha's name in Samuel's voice, filled with agony and desperation. Martha stiffened beside her. Stay here, she whispered, pressing a small kitchen knife into Clara's palm. No matter what you hear. Before Clara could protest, Martha was climbing back up the ladder. The trapdoor opened, spilling harsh light into the cellar. It closed again with terrible finality. Clara crouched in the darkness, knife clutched in trembling hands, as footsteps moved above her. Martha's voice, dignified even in fear, demanded the bandits leave. A man's voice answered, smooth and cultured with a Mexican accent. More shouting. A gunshot. A woman's cry cut suddenly short. Silence followed, broken only by the sound of systematic looting. Tears streamed down Clara's face, but she remained silent, remembering Martha's last instruction. Minutes stretched like hours as the bandits ransacked the station. Then, the smell of smoke reached her, followed by the crackle of flames. They were burning the station. Panic rose in Clara's throat as smoke began seeping through the floorboards. She had to move or suffocate. Quietly, she pushed open the trapdoor just enough to peer into the pantry. Smoke hung thick in the air, but she saw no one. Gathering her courage, Clara climbed out and crouched low, making her way toward the back door. Through the smoky haze, she glimpsed Martha's body near the hearth, blood staining her shawl crimson. Samuel lay near the front door, his shotgun still in his grasp. Clara stifled a sob, forcing herself to keep moving. She had almost reached the back door when a hand grabbed her hair, yanking her backward with cruel force. Clara screamed, slashing blindly with the knife. The blade connected with flesh, drawing a curse from her attacker. Tenemos una gata salvaje aquí, a voice called out, and rough hands seized her arms, wrenching the knife away. Clara found herself dragged outside and thrown to the ground before a man sitting calmly on a magnificent black horse. He was perhaps 40, with a carefully trimmed mustache and eyes like obsidian. Unlike his men, who wore dust-covered clothes and battered hats, this man's attire was immaculate. A fine black charro jacket with silver embroidery, polished boots, and a silk neckerchief. "What have we here?" he asked in perfect, almost scholarly English. "A little bird hiding in the nest." "Vicente," one of the men said, pressing a bandana to his bleeding arm where Clara had stabbed him. "The old ones are dead. Station's burning good now." The man, Vicente, dismounted with fluid grace, approaching Clara with the casual interest of someone examining livestock at auction. She tried to back away, but hands held her firmly in place. "What is your name, Nina?" Vicente asked, removing his gloves. Clara remained silent, defiance the only weapon left to her. Vicente smiled, the expression never reaching his eyes. No matter. You have spirit, that's good. Spirit is valuable where we're going. He touched her chin, forcing her to look at him. You belong to me now. He turned to his men. Bring her. Leave nothing standing. As they bound her wrists with rough rope, Clara caught a final glimpse of the station. Her home for 6 years, collapsing in flames. Martha's blood-stained shawl lay abandoned in the dirt. Clara memorized the sight, burning it into her mind alongside her promise. She would escape, and someday, she would see Vicente Diaz pay for what he had done. They threw her onto a horse, and the bandits rode west, leaving only ashes and death behind. Tahoe moved like a shadow across the desert landscape, his moccasins leaving barely a trace on the rocky ground. At 32 winters, he was in his prime, tall for an Apache, with the lean, hardened physique of a warrior who had seen many battles. His dark eyes missed nothing, reading the terrain as clearly as white men read their books. Around his neck hung a single eagle feather on a leather cord, a talisman blessed by the tribe's medicine man, Nakohi. For protection, the old man had said, pressing it into Tahoe's hand before this hunting trip. I have seen something in the smoke. Death approaches, but also life. You will understand when the time comes. Tahoe had accepted the talisman without question. Nakohi's visions were respected among the people, even by warriors like Tahoe who had seen the white man's world and learned to be skeptical of many old beliefs. Now, 3 days into his solitary hunt, Tahoe paused atop a ridge, sampling the wind. A familiar scent reached him, smoke. Not the clean smoke of a campfire, but the heavier smell of a structure burning. His eyes narrowed, scanning the horizon until he spotted the dark plume rising in the distance. The stagecoach station. He had traded there occasionally, when the old man Samuel had items the tribe needed: salt, coffee, ammunition. Unlike many whites, Samuel treated the Apache with respect, perhaps because he lived close enough to their lands to understand the cost of making enemies. Tahoe hesitated. The station's troubles were not his concern. His hunt had been successful. 2 deer were already dressed and packed on his small travois. He should return to his people. And yet, something pulled him toward the smoke. Nakohi's words echoed in his mind. Death approaches, but also life. With a soft click of his tongue, Tahoe adjusted course, moving swiftly toward the station. By the time he arrived, the main building had collapsed into a smoldering ruin. The outbuildings, stable, storage shed, outhouse were nothing but charred timbers. The smell of death hung heavy in the air. Tahoe approached cautiously, senses alert for any sign of danger. The attack was recent. Some timbers still burned, and the bodies he found near the ruins were not yet cold. Samuel lay near what had been the front door, his shotgun still clutched in his hands. The old woman, Martha, lay crumpled by the stone hearth that had partially survived the fire. Bandits, not Apache, had done this. Tahoe could read the signs clearly. Shod horse tracks, cartridge casings from American rifles, a half-empty bottle of Mexican tequila dropped in the dirt. This had been no raid for food or supplies, but a deliberate destruction. Kneeling beside Samuel's body, Tahoe murmured a brief prayer to guide the old man's spirit. Despite their different ways, Samuel had earned this small honor. As he stood, something caught his eye, a glint of silver in the dirt near Martha's body. He picked it up, a small knife, its blade smeared with dried blood. Not the blood of either of the elders, someone had fought back. Moving methodically around the ruins, Tahoe began reading the story written in the disturbed earth. Many men, at least 10, they had surrounded the station before attacking at dawn. The struggle had been brief but fierce. And then, Tahoe froze, eyes fixed on a set of small footprints leading from a side door. A woman, no, a girl, judging by the size. She had tried to flee but was caught. Here the dirt was deeply scuffed from a struggle. A splash of blood stained the ground. Not hers, based on the pattern. She had wounded one of her attackers. There had been a third person at the station. A girl who had not been killed but taken. Tahoe's jaw tightened as he followed the tracks. Clara winced as the iron shackle chafed against her already raw ankle. 3 days with the bandits had taught her much about suffering and the depths of human cruelty. After her escape attempt the first night, when she'd managed to slip away while the men were drinking, only to be tracked down within an hour, Vicente had ordered the shackle. Now a 3-foot chain tethered her to a stake hammered deep into the ground whenever they made camp. A wild horse must be broken before it becomes useful, Vicente had explained with his ever-present cold smile. You will learn, Nina. The camp bustled with activity as the bandits prepared the evening meal. Clara had been given the task of making tortillas, her hands working the coarse masa under the watchful eye of a bandit called Miguel. Unlike the others, Miguel was young, perhaps 20, with a gentleness in his eyes that he struggled to hide beneath a gruff exterior. More water, he instructed quietly, passing her a canteen. The dough is too dry. Clara accepted the water without acknowledgement. She had learned to keep her eyes down and her voice silent. Any show of spirit brought punishment, usually in the form of reduced rations or extra work. She added water to the masa, her thoughts focused on memorizing every detail of the camp and the men within it. 12 bandits, including Vicente, for always stood watch in rotation. They carried an assortment of weapons, mostly rifles and pistols, with a few knives and at least 2 men skilled with the lasso. Their horses, 17 in total, including the 4 stolen from the station, were kept in a rope corral on the canyon's eastern edge. Knowledge was her only weapon now. Knowledge and patience. The girl is too slow, complained Ramirez, a squat, vicious man with a pockmarked face. I'm hungry now. You're always hungry, Miguel retorted. Leave her be. The tortillas will be ready soon enough. Ramirez spat in the dirt near Clara's feet. Vicente has made you soft, boy. You want to bed her? Is that it? Miguel's hand dropped to his pistol. Watch your mouth. Enough. Vicente's voice cut through the tension. He approached from his private tent, where he had been studying maps spread across a portable writing desk. Ramirez, check the horses. Miguel, when the girl finishes the meal, bring her to me. Clara's hands trembled slightly as she continued working the masa. Vicente had largely ignored her since the capture, leaving her care to Miguel. What did he want now? As the camp settled into eating, Miguel unlocked Clara's shackle and led her toward Vicente's tent. Do not anger him, he whispered. Whatever he asks, just obey. It will be easier. Clara finally spoke, her voice hoarse from disuse. Why do you care? Miguel's eyes darted around the camp before answering. I have a sister your age. In Sonora. Before she could respond, they reached Vicente's tent. Miguel nodded once, then returned to the campfire, leaving Clara alone before the tent flap. Enter, Vicente called. The interior was surprisingly civilized. A folding cot with clean blankets, the writing desk with maps and ledgers, a small oil lamp casting a warm glow, and even a case of books. Vicente sat in a camp chair, sipping from a silver cup. Sit, he indicated a stool. Clara perched on the edge, ready to flee though she knew it was futile. You have spirit, Vicente observed, and intelligence. I see you watching, learning. Most captives simply weep. Clara remained silent. Do you know what happens to girls like you in this territory? He didn't wait for an answer. There are mining camps where men haven't seen a white woman in years. Brothels in border towns where pretty girls fetch high prices. Haciendas where rich landowners collect beautiful servants like artwork. He leaned forward. I have a friend in Sonora, Don Rafael Ortega. He has a taste for blue-eyed girls. He would pay handsomely for you. Fear clenched Clara's stomach, but she kept her expression neutral. Why tell me this? So you understand your position. Vicente set down his cup. Your fate depends entirely on my goodwill. Behave, and your life with Don Rafael might even be comfortable. Continue to resist, and there are far worse destinations. A shout from outside interrupted them. Vicente frowned, rising from his chair. Stay here. As soon as he left, Clara scanned the tent for anything useful. A weapon, a map, anything that might aid escape. On the desk lay an expensive fountain pen. She quickly slipped it into her sleeve just as the tent flap opened. Miguel stood there, face tight with urgency. Come? Now. What's happening? Apache, he whispered, grabbing her arm. One of the sentries is missing. Tahoe crouched in the shadow of a boulder, the body of the bandit sentry cooling beside him. The kill had been clean and silent, a quick thrust of his obsidian knife, sharp enough to part flesh like water. He had not wanted to kill, but the sentry had left him no choice. In the war between survival and morality, survival usually won. The knife had been his father's, the blade napped from volcanic glass found in the sacred mountains to the north. Its edge was sharper than any metal blade, though more brittle. His father had used it in ceremony and in battle before passing it to Tahoe upon his death. Now the ancient weapon had drawn blood once more. From his vantage point above the canyon, Tahoe studied the bandit camp below. 12 men as he had counted earlier. Now 11 with the sentry eliminated. Their camp was well organized, horses secured, sentries posted, tents arranged for defense. These were not common thieves but disciplined fighters, likely former soldiers turned outlaw. And there, sitting by the main fire, was the girl. Even from this distance, Tahoe could see she was young, perhaps 16 or 17 summers. Her fair hair glinted gold in the firelight, her skin pale against the dark clothing she wore. An iron shackle bound her ankle to a stake driven into the ground. Tahoe's mouth tightened. Slave traders. His hatred for such men ran deep, rooted in personal loss. 20 winters ago, his village had been raided by Mexican slave hunters seeking Apache women and children to sell in the southern territories. His mother had been killed defending her children. His sister Nara, just 14, had been taken. Tahoe, 12 at the time, had been knocked unconscious trying to protect her. When he recovered, his father and the other warriors tracked the slavers for 5 days. They returned with Nara's body and revenge in their eyes. But revenge could not restore life. His father never smiled again and walked into the desert alone 3 winters later, seeking death. Now, watching another young woman in chains, old wounds reopened in Tahoe's heart. This girl was not Apache, but the crime against her was the same. The Great Spirit had placed her in his path for a reason. Moving with the patience of a hunting cougar, Tahoe circled the canyon rim, assessing approaches. The main entrance was guarded by 2 sentries. The walls were steep but not unclimbable for one with his skills. 3 large tents suggested leaders or valuable cargo. The horses were picketed on the eastern side, a potential diversion. A plan formed in his mind. Not a frontal assault, that would be suicide, but a series of strikes from the shadows. Divide, confuse, conquer. He removed his hunting pouch and extracted several items. A small clay pot of pine pitch, strips of dried yucca fiber, flint and steel, and a handful of dried herbs that would create noxious smoke when burned. From around his neck, he took the eagle feather talisman, kissing it once before returning it. "Grandfather," he whispered to the night sky, using the ceremonial address for the Creator, "guide my hands, not for vengeance, but for justice." As full darkness descended, Tahoe began his preparations. He crafted 3 small bundles of yucca fiber soaked in pine pitch, each with a core of the smoke-producing herbs. These he would place at strategic points around the camp. When lit, they would create confusion and draw the bandits away from the girl. Next, he checked his weapons. The obsidian knife secured at his waist. His bow and quiver of 20 arrows strapped to his back. A war club made of mesquite wood hanging from his belt. He had left his rifle hidden with his travois, too noisy for this work. Finally, he painted his face with mixture of ash and clay, darkening his features for the night's work. The ritual calmed him, focusing his mind on the task ahead. Death was coming to the canyon tonight, but if the spirits favored him, not for the girl. Not for him. The bandits' voices drifted up from below. Laughter, arguments, the sounds of men unaware of the danger circling above them. Tahoe watched as one of the men approached the girl, unlocked her shackle, and led her toward the largest tent. The leader's tent, most likely. Time was running short. Tahoe slipped away from his observation point and moved toward the eastern rim of the canyon. There, a natural chimney in the rock face would allow him to descend unobserved near the horses. As he prepared to climb down, a flicker of movement caught his eye. One of the sentries, making his rounds along the canyon rim. The man was walking directly toward Tahoe's position. Pressing himself against the rock, Tahoe waited, his knife ready. One more death before the real battle began. Clara's heart pounded as Miguel pulled her behind a supply wagon. Chaos had erupted in the camp. Men shouting, horses neighing in panic, gunshots firing into the darkness. Apache, Miguel repeated, his voice tense. At least one, maybe more. He killed Rodriguez on the North Ridge, then Pedro by the horses. Let me go, Clara pleaded, seeing opportunity in the confusion. I won't tell anyone you helped me. Miguel hesitated, conflict clear in his young face. Vicente will hunt us both. Better than waiting to be sold like cattle. Clara clutched the fountain pen hidden in her sleeve, ready to use it if necessary. A sudden explosion on the far side of the camp made them both duck. Flames erupted near the horse corral, sending the animals into a frenzy. Several broke free, galloping through the camp and scattering the men trying to contain them. Diablo, Miguel swore. He's trying to free the horses. Another explosion, this time near the ammunition cache. Smoke billowed thick and acrid, causing men to cough and curse as they stumbled blindly. Vicente emerged from his tent, pistol drawn. Form a perimeter, he shouted. Miguel, where are you, boy? Miguel tensed. You have to run now, he whispered to Clara. Head east, toward the sunrise. There's a stream 2 miles from here. Follow it north to the trading post at Willow Creek. He pressed something into her hand. A red bandana. Take this. It was my sister's. For luck. Before Clara could respond, Miguel stepped away from the wagon, calling to Vicente. Here. I have the girl. Clara didn't waste the opportunity. Clutching the bandana, she darted between 2 tents, keeping low and moving toward the eastern edge of the camp. Smoke provided cover as she navigated around panicked men and fleeing horses. She had nearly reached the canyon wall when a shadow detached itself from the rocks. Clara raised the fountain pen, ready to strike, but froze when she saw the figure clearly. An Apache warrior stood before her, his face painted for battle, an obsidian knife gleaming in his hand. Blood stained the blade. His dark eyes assessed her swiftly, then he pressed a finger to his lips in the universal sign for silence. Clara hesitated, trapped between bandits behind and an unknown Apache ahead. The warrior extended his empty hand slowly, then pointed to the canyon wall where a narrow crevice offered a route upward. A shout from behind made the decision for her. The girl! She's escaping! Ramirez appeared through the smoke, his rifle raised. Without hesitation, the Apache warrior pushed Clara behind him and threw his knife with blinding speed. It struck Ramirez in the throat, sending him crumpling to the ground, the shot from his rifle going wild. The warrior retrieved his knife in one fluid motion, then grabbed Clara's arm. Come, he said in accented English. Now. They scrambled up the narrow crevice, the warrior climbing with practiced ease, pausing to help Clara navigate the more difficult sections. Bullets whined off the rocks around them, but the smoke and darkness made accurate shooting impossible. Reaching the canyon rim, they crouched behind boulders as more shots rang out below. The warrior studied Clara's face, his expression unreadable. You are hurt? He asked. Clara shook her head, too breathless to speak. I am Tahoe of the Chiricahua Apache, he said. The men who took you killed friends of mine. Clara Bennett, she managed between gasps. Thank you for. Later. Tahoe cut her off, scanning the rim. They will come after us. We must move. A rifle shot kicked up dust inches from Clara's foot. Tahoe pulled her down as more bullets followed. Vicente, Clara whispered. Their leader. Through a gap in the rocks, she could see Vicente climbing the canyon wall, 2 bandits flanking him. His face was contorted with rage. The girl is mine, he shouted. his voice carrying clearly. 1,000 pesos to the man who kills the Apache. Tahoe's expression hardened. He reached for his bow, knocking an arrow with practiced ease. Drawing the bowstring to his cheek, he aimed at Vicente, waited for the bandit leader to emerge from cover, and released. The arrow flew true, striking Vicente in the shoulder. He fell back with a cry of pain but remained on the ledge, sheltered by rock. "We go now," Tahoe said, slinging his bow across his back. "Can you run?" Clara nodded, determination replacing fear. "Yes." Tahoe studied her for a moment, then handed her a small water skin. "Then run we will. All night if necessary." As they fled into the desert night, the sounds of pursuit faded behind them. Clara clutched the red bandana Miguel had given her, wondering if he would pay for his help with his life. "Your friend," Tahoe said, noticing her concern. "The young one who distracted the others. He chose his path." "He was kind to me," Clara said quietly. Tahoe nodded once. "Then we will honor his choice by surviving." They ran on through the moonlit desert, an unlikely pair bound by circumstance and survival. They ran through the night, Tahoe setting a punishing pace across the moonlit desert. Clara followed without complaint, though her lungs burned and her legs trembled with exhaustion. Freedom gave her strength that captivity had drained away. When the eastern sky began to pale with approaching dawn, Tahoe finally slowed, leading her into a narrow ravine sheltered by twisted juniper trees. A small spring bubbled from the rock face, forming a shallow pool before disappearing underground. "Drink," Tahoe instructed, refilling the water skin after Clara had quenched her thirst. "But slowly. Too much at once will make you sick." Clara cupped her hands and sipped carefully, the cool water like a blessing on her parched throat. She splashed some on her face, washing away dust and the lingering touch of Vicente's fingers on her chin. "Will they follow us?" she asked, watching Tahoe scan their back trail. "Yes." His answer was matter-of-fact. "The one called Vicente, he will not stop. A man like that does not accept defeat." "You know him?" "I know his kind." Tahoe knelt and examined her ankle, where the shackle had left a raw, bleeding ring. From a small pouch at his waist, he removed a paste of crushed herbs. "This will help. It will burn, but prevent poison in the blood." Clara winced as he applied the medicine, but didn't pull away. "Thank you for everything." Tahoe merely nodded, his expression remaining neutral. "We will rest here until midday. Then we must move again." He handed her a strip of dried meat from his pouch. "Eat. You need strength." The meat was tough and gamey, unlike anything Clara had tasted before, but hunger made it palatable. She chewed slowly, studying her rescuer as he made a careful circuit of their temporary haven. Tahoe moved with the grace of a mountain lion, each step deliberate and silent. His face, now cleaned of battle paint, revealed strong features, high cheekbones, a straight nose, and eyes that missed nothing. A thin scar ran from his right temple to his jaw, the only flaw in his otherwise symmetrical face. He was older than she had first thought, perhaps in his early 30s, with the weathered look of someone who had lived a hard life. "Why did you help me?" Clara finally asked. "You risked your life for a stranger." Tahoe paused, seeming to consider how much to say. "The old ones at the station, they were fair traders. And you?" He hesitated. "Long ago, my sister was taken by men like these. No one saved her." "I'm sorry," Clara said softly. "It was many seasons past." He sat across from her, his back against the ravine wall. "You should sleep while you can. I will keep watch." Despite her exhaustion, sleep seemed impossible. "I don't even know where we're going." "Away from the bandits. Beyond that." Tahoe shrugged. "Where would you go? You have family?" Clara shook her head. "No one. The Whitakers, the people at the station, they were all I had." A moment of silence stretched between them. "Then for now we go to my people," Tahoe said. "It is 3 days' journey if we move quickly. You will be safe there until you decide your path." "Your people won't mind?" "A white girl in their camp." Tahoe's expression remained unreadable. Some will mind. Others will accept the decision of the tribal council. It is not unprecedented. Clara wanted to ask more, but fatigue suddenly overwhelmed her. She leaned back against the cool stone of the ravine, and despite her intentions to remain vigilant, sleep claimed her within moments. She woke to Tahoe's hand on her shoulder, his voice low and urgent. "We must move. Now." The quality of light suggested several hours had passed. Clara scrambled to her feet, instantly alert. "They've found us." "Not yet, but they are near." Tahoe handed her the water skin. "Drink and be ready." They set out at a more measured pace than the night before, Tahoe leading them through increasingly rugged terrain. He moved with absolute confidence, finding paths where Clara saw only impenetrable brush or sheer rock faces. "How do you know where to go?" she asked during a brief rest. "My people have hunted these lands for generations," he replied. "Every rock, every tree has meaning." As the day progressed, communication between them developed into a strange mixture of English, Spanish, and gestures. Tahoe knew enough of both languages to make himself understood, and Clara had picked up some Spanish from traders at the station. "Water ahead," Tahoe said as the sun began its western descent. "We will need it for the journey tomorrow. The land becomes very dry." They approached a small seep in a sandstone outcropping, but Tahoe suddenly froze, raising his hand for silence. Clara stopped, her heart racing as she followed his gaze. In the mud around the water source were fresh footprints. Boots, not moccasins. Tahoe put his mouth close to her ear, his breath warm as he whispered, "They have circled ahead of us. They know these lands too." Clara clutched the red bandana, a talisman against fear. "What do we do?" Tahoe's eyes narrowed as he studied the terrain. "We become ghosts." Vicente Diaz pressed a cloth against his shoulder, where Tahoe's arrow had struck him. The wound was painful but not life-threatening. The Apache's aim had been true. Had Vicente not moved at the last instant, the arrow would have pierced his heart. "The pain reminds me they live," he told Miguel, who was replacing the bandage. "The girl and the Apache. Both still breathing while my men are dead." They had lost 4 men in the attack, Rodriguez and Pedro to the Apache's knife, Ramirez to his thrown blade, and Ernesto to friendly fire in the confusion. 8 remained, counting Miguel and Vicente himself. Vicente adjusted his position on the boulder where he sat, examining his prized brass compass. The instrument had been a gift from a Mexican general years ago, when Vicente still wore a uniform and followed orders. Now it served a different purpose, guiding him not to military victory but to personal vengeance. "You're certain they went north?" he asked Joaquin, his best tracker. The weathered man nodded. "The Apache is clever, but even he leaves signs. They traveled through the night, then rested at a spring in the eastern ravine." He pointed to the map Vicente had spread across a flat rock. "Here. But they have moved on now." "And you found nothing at the spring?" "No clue to their destination." Joaquin hesitated. "Only this." He produced a small scrap of fabric, a thread from the girl's dress caught on a juniper branch. "The Apache knows we follow. He has begun taking precautions, walking on stone, covering their tracks." Vicente's eyes narrowed. "But you can still find them?" "I was tracking Apache raiders before you had your first woman, Jeef," Joaquin replied with a grim smile. "This one is good, but no ghost." "Miguel." Vicente turned to the young bandit. "You were guarding the girl. Did she say anything? Give any hint of where the Apache might take her?" Miguel shook his head, keeping his expression carefully neutral. "Nothing, Patron. She barely spoke at all." Vicente studied the younger man, sensing the lie but unable to prove it. Miguel had been the last to see the girl before the Apache's attack, and circumstances of her escape remained suspicious. "Very well." Vicente rose, ignoring the pain in his shoulder. "Joaquin, you believe they are heading toward Apache territory?" "It would be logical. The Chiricahua lands begin beyond the Red Mesa, perhaps 2 days' journey from here." Vicente traced the route on the map with his finger. "Then we intercept them here at Coyote, Washington. It is the only water source between here and the mesa. They must pass it. He addressed the assembled men. We ride in 1 hour. Travel light, weapons, water, and enough food for 3 days. Leave the rest cached here. Speed is essential now. As the men dispersed to prepare, Vicente beckoned Miguel to remain. Tell me, boy, if you were in the Apache's position with a white girl to protect and killers on your trail, what would you do? Miguel considered carefully. I would avoid the obvious routes. Perhaps even double back. Good. Vicente smiled thinly. Which is why we divide our forces. Joaquin will lead 4 men to Coyote, Washington. You and I, with Carlos, will circle back toward the station. If the Apache is as clever as I think, he might return there, believing we would never expect it. Miguel's eyes widened slightly. The station is burned, Patron. Why would they go there? Because it is the last place we would look. And because the girl lived there. She might seek familiar ground. Vicente's hand moved to the handle of his silver-plated pistol, caressing it absently. Tell me truly now, Miguel. Did you help her escape? The young bandit met his gaze steadily. No, Patron. But I wish I had. Vicente's laughter was unexpected and cold. Honesty at last. I value that, even when it disappoints me. His hand moved from the pistol to rest on Miguel's shoulder. You remind me of myself at your age. Passionate, principled. Life will beat that out of you, boy. Miguel remained silent, his jaw tight. When we find them, Vicente continued, the Apache dies slowly. The girl, he shrugged. Don Rafael will still pay well for her, though less if she's damaged. Restrain your gallantry when the time comes. And if I cannot? Vicente's grip on his shoulder tightened painfully. Then you will join the Apache in his suffering. Clear? Miguel nodded once, his eyes lowered. Clear, Patron. As Vicente walked away, Miguel touched the empty space in his pocket where his sister's red bandana had been. He had made his choice, giving Clara that token and directions to safety. If Vicente discovered his betrayal, death would be the merciful outcome. An hour later, the bandits rode out in 2 groups, Joaquin leading his men toward Coyote Wash, while Vicente, Miguel, and Carlos headed east, back toward the burned station. The hunt continued under the merciless desert sun, predators stalking prey across a land indifferent to the suffering of either. Tahoe led Clara up a nearly invisible path that zigzagged through a field of massive boulders. The late afternoon sun beat down mercilessly, but the Apache moved without hesitation, finding handholds in the seemingly smooth rock faces and guiding Clara to follow his exact steps. Stay close, he instructed. Walk only where I walk. The stone remembers nothing. Clara understood his strategy. On the hard stone, they would leave no tracks for Vicente's men to follow. Her hands were scraped raw from climbing, her dress torn at the hem, but she matched Tahoe's pace without complaint. After an hour of grueling ascent, they reached a narrow crevice in the cliff face, barely wide enough for a person to squeeze through sideways. Tahoe went first, then motioned for Clara to follow. The passage was dark and claustrophobic, the rough stone walls pressing against her shoulders as she inched forward. When she emerged on the other side, Clara gasped in wonder. Before her stretched a hidden canyon, perhaps half a mile long and a quarter-mile wide, completely enclosed by towering red sandstone walls. A small stream trickled down one cliff face, forming a crystal-clear pool surrounded by lush vegetation. Cottonwood trees provided shade, their leaves whispering in the gentle breeze. Near the pool stood a natural alcove in the canyon wall, a perfect, protected shelter. It's beautiful, Clara breathed. How did you know this was here? My grandfather showed me when I was a boy, Tahoe replied, leading her toward the alcove. The people have used this place for generations, a sacred place for vision quests and healing. The alcove contained evidence of previous visitors, a stone circle for a fire pit, a few pottery shards, and, most surprisingly, ancient paintings adorning the curved wall. Clara approached them with reverence, studying the faded red and ochre images. They depicted human figures, animals, and geometric patterns that seemed to tell a story she couldn't quite decipher. How old are these? She asked, reaching out but stopping short of touching the fragile artwork. The oldest were made before my grandfather's grandfather was born, Tahoe said. The newest, perhaps 50 summers ago. They tell the history of my people in this land. He pointed to one sequence of figures. Here, the story of Yellow Hawk, who brought his bride from another tribe during a time of drought. She knew secrets of finding water that saved our people. His finger moved to another image, a woman surrounded by children. Their many children became great leaders. Clara studied the paintings with new appreciation. Your people have been here a long time, since before the Spanish came with their horses and guns, Tahoe affirmed, before the white men built their forts and towns. He busied himself collecting wood for a small fire, which he built in the stone circle. The smoke rose and dispersed through a natural chimney in the alcove's ceiling, invisible from outside. Vicente's men cannot find this place? Clara asked, accepting a handful of berries Tahoe had gathered. They would need to know exactly where to look, he replied. The entrance is hidden, and I left no trail on the stone. We are safe here for now. As darkness fell, the temperature dropped dramatically. Tahoe added wood to the fire and offered Clara his leather vest. You need it more than I, he said when she hesitated. I am used to the desert night. Clara accepted gratefully, wrapping the garment around her shoulders. It carried his scent, sage, smoke, and something indefinably wild. How long will we stay? She asked. Until morning. Then we must reach Coyote Wash by nightfall tomorrow. And after that? Tahoe's expression grew contemplative in the firelight. 2 more days to my people's camp, if we travel without trouble. Clara hugged her knees to her chest. What will happen to me there? The tribal council will decide, Tahoe said honestly. But I will speak for you. You saved yourself as much as I saved you. That counts for much among my people. They sat in silence for a time, the only sounds the crackling fire and the distant call of a night bird. Clara found herself studying Tahoe's profile, the strong line of his jaw, the quiet dignity in his bearing. He was unlike any man she had known. Why did they call you Tahoe? She asked suddenly. Does it have a meaning? A small smile, the first she had seen, flickered across his face. It means blue water in my language. My mother named me for the color of the lake where I was born. It's a good name, Clara said softly. And you, Clara Bennett? What does your name mean? Clara means clear or bright in Latin, she replied. Though I never felt particularly bright or clear about anything. Names do not always tell what we are, Tahoe said, but sometimes what we may become. He added another branch to the fire, sending sparks spiraling upward. Rest now. Tomorrow will test us both. As Clara settled onto a bed of soft grasses Tahoe had prepared, she felt a strange peace despite their precarious situation. The painted figures on the wall seemed to watch over them, ancient witnesses to yet another story unfolding in this hidden sanctuary. Clara woke to the gentle sound of Tahoe working with a needle and thread, his fingers moving deftly across a piece of soft deerskin. Morning light filtered through the canyon, casting everything in a golden glow. You slept deeply, he observed without looking up. Clara stretched, surprised to find her body less sore than expected. What are you making? Moccasins, Tahoe replied, holding up his handiwork. Your boots will not survive our journey. These will serve you better. Clara examined her worn leather boots, splitting at the seams from the harsh terrain. You're right, but I've never worn moccasins before. They will feel strange at first, Tahoe acknowledged, but they will protect your feet while letting them feel the earth beneath. This helps find balance. He completed his work, adding a simple beaded pattern along the top edge, a zigzag line in blue and white. The pattern represents water flowing over stone, he explained, handing them to her. For safe passage. Clara accepted the gift with genuine gratitude. They're beautiful. Thank you. Try them, Tahoe suggested, turning away to give her privacy as she removed her boots and slipped on the moccasins. They fit perfectly, the soft leather conforming to her feet like a second skin. Clara took a few experimental steps, marveling at the sensation. I can feel everything. The sand, the small stones, the temperature of the ground. Tahoe nodded approvingly. This is good. The land speaks to your feet, tells you where to step safely. After a simple breakfast of dried meat and berries, Tahoe began teaching Clara basic phrases in Apache, words for water, food, danger, safety. Clara proved a quick study, her ear for language surprising him. You learn fast, he commented as she correctly repeated a complex greeting. Martha, the woman at the station, taught me that education was precious, Clara explained. I had few books, but I read them over and over, and travelers would sometimes teach me words from their languages. In turn, Clara shared stories from the few books she had treasured, tales of far-off England with its green hills and ancient castles, so different from the harsh desert around them. The land you describe, Tahoe said thoughtfully, it sounds like the Apache stories of the spirit world, always green with plenty for all. I've never seen it myself, Clara admitted. I was born in Missouri. My parents were heading to California when... She trailed off, the memories still painful. Tahoe nodded, understanding in his silence. Loss was a language they both spoke fluently. As they prepared to leave their sanctuary, Tahoe showed Clara how to use a yucca root to make soap. They took turns bathing in the small pool, Tahoe keeping watch while Clara washed away days of dust and fear, then Clara watching the canyon entrance while Tahoe did the same. The water feels alive, Clara commented, wringing out her hair. Not like the water from our well at the station. All water is alive, Tahoe replied. The Apache believe water remembers where it has been and where it is going. It carries stories. Before departing, Tahoe knelt by the alcove wall, adding a small, simple painting next to the ancient ones. Two figures journeying together. You're adding to the story? Clara asked. All who shelter here may add their mark, if done with respect, he explained, using a mixture of red ochre and water. This way, our journey becomes part of the canyon's memory. As they prepared to leave through the narrow crevice, Clara took a final look at the hidden paradise. Will we ever return here? Perhaps, Tahoe said, if the spirits will it. Their exit from the canyon was as challenging as their entry had been. Tahoe led Clara down a different route, following dry stream beds where possible to hide their tracks. He showed her how to move through the landscape leaving minimal signs of passage, walking on stone, avoiding disturbing vegetation, even brushing away their footprints with a branch when they had no choice but to cross soft earth. Vicente is no fool, Tahoe explained. His tracker will be looking for any sign we passed this way. By midday, they had covered several miles, the terrain gradually changing from rocky cliffs to more open desert, dotted with saguaro cacti and creosote bushes. The heat was intense, but Tahoe set a steady pace, pausing occasionally in the shade of larger plants to rest and conserve water. During one such break, Tahoe fashioned a head covering for Clara from the red bandana Miguel had given her, showing her how to arrange it to protect both her neck and face from the sun. Your skin burns easily, he noted, gesturing to the redness already appearing on her arms. This will help. Clara tied the bandana as instructed. How far to Coyote Wash? We should reach it by nightfall, Tahoe replied, studying the sun's position. But we must be cautious. It is the only water between here and the Red Mesa. Vicente will know this. You think he'll be waiting for us there? Tahoe's expression grew grim. I would if I were hunting us. Clara touched the moccasins he had made for her, drawing strength from the gesture. Then we'll need to be clever. Then him. A hint of approval flickered in Tahoe's eyes. Yes, and we will be. As the sun began its descent toward the western horizon, Tahoe halted abruptly, kneeling to examine something in the sand. Clara stopped beside him, her new moccasins allowing her to move almost as quietly as he did now. What is it? She whispered. Tahoe picked up a single eagle feather, its tip marked with red ochre. He studied it carefully, then glanced around the seemingly empty landscape. A message, he said quietly. From my people. Clara looked around, seeing nothing but desert scrub and distant rock formations. I don't see anyone. They do not wish to be seen. Tahoe rose, still holding the feather. Apache scouts patrol the boundaries of our territory. One has observed us and left this warning. What does it mean? Tahoe's expression grew concerned. The red mark means danger ahead, specifically, armed men near water. Vicente's men at Coyote Wash, Clara concluded, her stomach tightening with fear. Just as you predicted. Tahoe nodded grimly. The scout would have continued on to warn our village of strangers in our territory. He slipped the feather carefully into his belt. We must change our path. The sun was sinking lower, painting the desert in deepening shades of orange and purple. Clara felt the day's exhaustion weighing on her limbs, but concern overrode fatigue. Without water from Coyote Wash, can we make it to your village? There is another way, Tahoe said after a moment's consideration. More difficult. Through the high rocks to the north. There is a small spring known only to the Apache, but it adds half a day to our journey. A distant cry made them both freeze, the unmistakable screech of a hawk. But Tahoe's reaction told Clara it was no ordinary bird call. Another warning, he murmured. The scout signals that men approach from the east. He grabbed Clara's arm, pulling her into the shadow of a large boulder. Stay low. They pressed themselves against the sun-warmed stone as Tahoe peered carefully around its edge. Clara could now hear what his keen senses had detected earlier, the distant sound of hoofbeats. 3 riders, Tahoe whispered, coming fast along our trail. How? Clara asked. You said we left no tracks. Someone who knows these lands very well, Tahoe replied. Someone who thinks as I do. The riders appeared on a ridge about half a mile away, 3 silhouettes against the sunset sky. Even at this distance, Clara recognized the center figure's distinctive posture. Vicente, she breathed, her blood turning cold. Tahoe's eyes narrowed. And he rides directly toward us, not toward Coyote, Washington. He has guessed our route. What do? We cannot outrun horses, Tahoe said, his mind working rapidly. And night falls too slowly to hide us. He scanned their surroundings, then pointed to a tumble of massive boulders about 100 yards away. There. If we can reach those rocks unseen, there are caves that go deep. Clara nodded, gathering her courage. On your signal. They waited until the riders disappeared behind a rise, then ran in a low crouch toward the boulder field. Clara's heart pounded as they sprinted across the exposed ground, expecting at any moment to hear shouts or gunfire. They reached the rocks just as the riders crested the rise again. Tahoe pulled Clara into a narrow space between 2 towering boulders, pressing deep into the shadows. The gap narrowed to a tight squeeze that opened into a small cave, completely hidden from outside view. How did you know this was here? Clara whispered as they settled into the cramped space. I played in these rocks as a boy, Tahoe replied. The people do not build permanent dwellings, but we know every hiding place in our territory. They fell silent as the sound of hoofbeats grew louder. The riders passed within 50 yards of their hiding spot, close enough that Clara could hear Vicente's voice giving orders to his men. They circle the area, Tahoe translated quietly. He knows we are near. For hours, they remained motionless in the cave as Vicente's men methodically searched the surrounding terrain. Darkness fell completely, but the hunters lit torches, unwilling to give up their pursuit. Why doesn't he join the others at Coyote Wash? Clara wondered. Because he is clever, Tahoe answered. He divided his forces. Some wait at the water, knowing we must eventually seek it. He and these men follow our actual trail. A shout from outside indicated one of the men had found something. Tahoe tensed, his hand moving to his knife. What did they find? Clara asked. Footprints, perhaps, or sign of our passage through the brush. Tahoe peered through a tiny gap in the rocks. They gather by the boulder where we hid earlier. Vicente's voice carried clearly in the night air, issuing commands in Spanish. They will search through the night, Tahoe said. We are trapped here until they give up or move on. Clara hugged her knees to her chest, fighting back despair. If we can't reach water, we have enough for one more day, Tahoe assured her, patting the water skin. And there is moisture in these rocks. See, he showed her where condensation had formed on the cool stone surface of their shelter. The desert provides if you know where to look. A sudden commotion outside drew their attention. Horses whinnying, men shouting in alarm. Then came the unmistakable sound of rifle fire. What's happening? Clara asked. Tahoe's expression changed to one of grim satisfaction. My people have come. By dawn, the desert had fallen silent again. Tahoe cautiously led Clara from their rocky shelter into the gray light of early morning. The only evidence of the night's conflict was a set of hoof prints leading away to the west, Vicente and his men in hasty retreat. Your people? Clara asked, scanning the empty landscape. Gone, Tahoe replied. They would not linger. 3 warriors based on the tracks. They came to drive away the intruders, not to meet us. How did they know where to find us? The scout who left the warning feather. Tahoe pointed to barely visible tracks in the sand that Clara would have never noticed without his guidance. He watched over us through the night, then brought others when Vicente's men drew too close. They set out immediately, Tahoe leading them northeast through increasingly rugged terrain. The morning passed in exhausting ascent as they climbed into higher country. By midday, they had reached a ridge overlooking a vast expanse of desert, mountains shimmering in the distant haze. Apache land, Tahoe said with quiet pride, indicating the vista before them. The Spanish called my people Apache, enemy, but we call ourselves ND, the people. Clara paused to catch her breath, taking in the wild, untamed beauty of the landscape. It's magnificent, so different from anything I've known. Tahoe nodded, a rare smile, briefly softening his features. To those who do not know it, the desert seems empty, dead, but it is full of life for those with eyes to see. As if to illustrate his point, he knelt suddenly, brushing aside a small rock to reveal a tiny desert flower, its purple petals barely the size of a fingernail. This grows only after the winter rains, and only in the shadow of red stones. My people use it for medicine. They continued their journey through the afternoon, Tahoe pointing out signs of life that Clara would have missed. A lizard perfectly camouflaged against the stone, the nearly invisible burrow of a kangaroo rat, tracks of a bobcat printed in a patch of sand. As the day progressed, Tahoe began sharing stories of his people's history in this land, tales passed down through generations. He spoke of ancient migrations, of battles with other tribes and later with Spanish soldiers, of years of plenty and times of terrible drought. How do your people survive here? Clara asked as they navigated a particularly barren stretch. There seems so little water, so little to eat. We live in harmony with the cycles of the land, Tahoe explained, moving with the seasons, taking only what we need. The desert has taught us patience and resilience. When darkness fell, they made camp in a small hollow protected by jutting rocks. The night was clear, the sky ablaze with stars more numerous than Clara had ever seen. There are so many, she marveled, gazing upward. At the station, I thought I knew the night sky, but the stars guide us when we travel at night, Tahoe said, sitting beside her. From his pouch, he produced a flat piece of hide marked with intricate patterns, a star chart of remarkable accuracy. This shows the paths of the stars through the seasons. Clara studied the chart with fascination. You made this? My father taught me, Tahoe replied, his finger tracing a particular constellation. This one we call the Hunter. Your people name it differently. Orion, Clara supplied. In our stories, he was a great hunter too. They fell into comfortable silence, sharing the last of their dried meat. The temperature dropped rapidly after sunset, and Clara shivered despite the small fire Tahoe had built. Here, he said, noticing her discomfort. He removed his leather shirt, draping it around her shoulders. But you'll be cold, she protested. Tahoe shook his head. I have lived in these mountains all my life. My blood is accustomed to the night's chill. Clara accepted the garment, touched by his continuing care for her welfare. The leather retained his warmth and carried his scent, bringing a sense of security she hadn't expected. "Tomorrow we will reach the hidden spring," Tahoe said, feeding another stick to the fire. "From there, it is one more day to my village." "What will happen when we arrive?" Clara asked, voicing the concern that had grown as they traveled deeper into Apache territory. Tahoe considered before answering. "You will be a stranger, a white woman in a place few white people have seen. Some will fear you, others will be curious." He paused. "But you come under my protection. That will count for much." "And the tribal council you mentioned? They will question why I brought you." "I will tell them of Vicente, of the station, of your courage." His dark eyes reflected the firelight. "Truth is valued among my people. They will listen." Clara nodded, drawing his shirt tighter around her shoulders. "I'm grateful, Tahoe, for everything." A distant howl echoed across the desert, a coyote calling to its pack. Tahoe listened, head tilted slightly. "He hunts tonight," he observed, "as Vicente hunts us still. You think he'll follow us even here, into Apache territory? A man like that does not surrender his prey easily." Tahoe's expression grew solemn. "But he enters the domain of the people now. Here, we are the hunters, not the hunted." As Clara drifted toward sleep, lulled by the crackling fire and the vast silence of the desert night, she realized something had changed within her. The fear that had been her constant companion since the bandits' attack had transformed into something else. A quiet determination, a growing strength she hadn't known she possessed. They crested the final ridge late in the afternoon of the next day, Clara's legs trembling with exhaustion. Below them, nestled in a protected valley with a small stream running through it, lay the Apache village. Unlike the permanent settlements Clara was familiar with, this was a collection of dome-shaped dwellings, wickiups made of brush and grass over wooden frames, arranged in family groups. Smoke rose from several cooking fires, and horses grazed in a natural corral formed by the bend of the stream. "You're home," Clara said softly. Tahoe nodded, his posture subtly changing, straighter, more formal. "My people, remember what I told you. Speak only when spoken to. Keep your eyes lowered when elders address you. Accept any food or drink offered with both hands." Clara nodded, suddenly acutely aware of her appearance. Her torn dress, dirty face, and tangled hair. "I must look a fright." "You look like a survivor," Tahoe corrected her. He touched the eagle feather at his throat. "That is something my people will understand." As they descended toward the village, their arrival was noted. Children playing near the perimeter spotted them first, running back to spread the word. By the time they reached level ground, a small delegation had assembled to meet them. 3 elderly men and 2 middle-aged women, their faces impassive. Tahoe raised his hand in greeting and spoke in Apache. Clara understood nothing of the exchange that followed, but noted the mixture of surprise, concern, and curiosity in the elder's expressions as Tahoe gestured occasionally toward her. One of the older men, his face deeply lined with age and his long hair streaked with gray, stepped forward, studying Clara with penetrating dark eyes. He spoke directly to her in halting English. "I am Nantai, chief of this band. Tahoe says you are Clara, survivor of the station attacked by Mexican bandits. Is this true?" Clara lowered her eyes respectfully. "Yes, they killed my guardians and took me captive. Tahoe saved my life." Nantai considered this, then addressed Tahoe again in Apache. Whatever Tahoe replied seemed to satisfy him temporarily. "You will come to the council lodge," Nantai decided. "The elders must hear your story." The group led them into the village, where every activity had stopped as the residents watched the unprecedented arrival of a white woman. Children peeked from behind their mothers, some pointing, others hiding. The adults maintained more dignified reserve, but their curiosity was palpable. The council lodge stood at the center of the village, larger than the family dwellings and open at the center to allow smoke from the central fire to escape. Inside, Clara found herself seated on a woven mat facing a semicircle of tribal elders, 5 men and 2 women, all with the weathered faces of those who had seen many winters. Tahoe sat beside her, a reassuring presence as he recounted their journey in his native tongue. Occasionally, Nantai would translate key points or ask Clara direct questions, which she answered as truthfully and respectfully as she could. The one called Vicente, Nantai asked, "He still hunts you?" "Yes," Clara replied. "He plans to sell me to a man in Mexico." Murmurs of disapproval circulated among the elders. Slave trading was something they understood all too well, having lost many of their own people to such practices over the generations. An elderly woman with silver hair and surprisingly bright eyes addressed Tahoe at length, her tone questioning. He responded with evident respect, but firmly. When she looked to Clara with skepticism, Tahoe removed the red bandana from his pack and showed it to the council, explaining Miguel's role in their escape. Nantai translated. "Nakohi, our medicine woman, asks why a white woman should be given shelter when white soldiers have driven us from our best lands and killed our people. Tahoe answers that you are not responsible for these crimes, and that you showed courage against common enemies." The debate continued as daylight faded, lanterns being lit as the elders deliberated. Finally, Nantai turned to Clara. "Tahoe speaks strongly for you. He says the Great Spirit placed you in his path for a reason." The chief's expression remained inscrutable. "We have decided. You may remain with us until the danger has passed. You will stay in the dwelling of Casa, Tahoe's cousin, who lost her husband to soldier bullets last winter." Relief flooded through Clara. "Thank you. I won't be a burden." "No, you will not," Nantai agreed, his tone making it clear this was an expectation rather than a response to her promise. "You will work like all women of the tribe. Casa will teach you our ways." As they left the council lodge, the village had settled into evening routines. Cooking fires burned brightly, and the smell of unfamiliar but appetizing food filled the air. Tahoe led Clara to a wickiup near the edge of the settlement. A young woman emerged, perhaps 25, with a solemn face and eyes that held deep sadness. At her hip was a small child, no more than 2 years old. "Casa," Tahoe greeted her. "This is Clara." Casa studied Clara silently, then surprised her by stepping forward and taking her hand. She spoke softly in Apache. "She welcomes you," Tahoe translated. "She says any enemy of the slave traders is a friend to her." Casa disappeared briefly into her dwelling, returning with a folded garment of white buckskin, elaborately beaded along the edges. She offered it to Clara with a formal gesture. "A dress," Tahoe explained, "made for her sister who died of fever before wearing it. She honors you with this gift." Clara accepted it with both hands, as Tahoe had instructed. "Thank you," she said, looking directly into Casa's eyes. "Ahi," the Apache word for thank you, one of the few phrases Tahoe had taught her, brought a flicker of surprise and approval to Casa's face. "Come," Casa said in broken English, gesturing Clara inside. "Eat, then sleep. Tomorrow much work." Dawn came early in the Apache village. Clara woke to the sound of Casa stoking the small fire at the center of the wickiup, the toddler, a boy named Tarak, watching his mother with solemn eyes. Clara had slept in the white buckskin dress, afraid to seem ungrateful by not wearing Casa's gift immediately. "Good morning," Clara said, sitting up on her bedding of soft hides. Casa nodded in acknowledgement, then handed Clara a clay pot filled with water. Clara understood without words. Washing came first in the day's rituals. She cleaned her face and hands, then followed Casa outside where the village was already bustling with activity. The morning unfolded in a whirlwind of new experiences. Casa led Clara to the stream where the women gathered, showing her how to fill water containers, vessels made from sealed gourds and animal bladders. Clara's first attempt at carrying water in a bladder slung across her back resulted in a soaking that caused several Apache women to laugh, not unkindly. One woman, younger than Casa but with similar features, approached to help Clara adjust the carrier properly. "My sister Nara," Casa explained in her limited English, "speaks your words better." "Tahoe taught me some English," Nara said, her accent less pronounced than Casa's. He trades with whites sometimes. She demonstrated the proper way to balance the water carrier. Like this. Back straight, use both shoulder straps. Clara tried again, this time succeeding in carrying the water back to Cass's dwelling without spilling. Thank you, Nara. You are Tahoe's rescued one, Nara observed, studying Clara with intelligent eyes. He has gone to speak with the scouts on the western boundary. Vicente's men were seen again yesterday. Clara's stomach tightened with fear. They followed us here? They camp beyond our territory, Nara assured her. They dare not enter without invitation. Not even Vicente is that foolish. Throughout the day, Casa and Nara introduced Clara to the rhythms of Apache life. She learned to grind acorn flour on a stone metate, to weave simple baskets from yucca fibers, and to prepare a stew of unfamiliar roots and dried meat that proved surprisingly flavorful. The work was hard but purposeful. Every task contributed directly to survival, and Clara found satisfaction in the immediacy of it. Unlike the endless cleaning and waiting at the stagecoach station, here every activity had clear value. The Apache women watched Clara carefully at first, some with open suspicion, others with mere curiosity. Children kept their distance initially, peering at her from behind their mothers. But Clara's willingness to work and learn gradually eased tensions. By midday, Clara had earned enough trust to be left alone with a task: crafting a water pot from clay dug from the streambed. Nara had demonstrated the technique, showing Clara how to mix the clay with fine sand for strength, how to coil the clay into shape, and how to smooth the surface with a polished stone. Not bad for first try, Nara commented when she returned to check Clara's progress. Better than mine was. The simple praise warmed Clara more than she expected. When will it be ready to use? Must dry in sun 2 days, then burn in fire, Nara explained. But first, important ceremony. You come. Nara led Clara to a larger wickiup on the village's eastern edge, where several women were gathering. Inside, Nakohi, the skeptical medicine woman from the council, sat surrounded by bundles of herbs and ceremonial objects. What ceremony is this? Clara whispered to Nara. Healing for a Sti, warrior wounded by Mexican soldiers last moon. Nara replied. Nakohi allows you to watch. An honor. Clara sat quietly at the back of the gathering as Nakohi began a rhythmic chant, burning herbs that filled the wickiup with sweet-smelling smoke. A young man with a bandaged shoulder lay on a pallet of furs, his eyes closed as the medicine woman worked. The ceremony lasted over an hour, with various women participating at Nakohi's direction. Clara observed with respect, noting how different this healing ritual was from the doctor's visits she remembered from childhood, yet how similar in its underlying purpose. When the ceremony concluded, Nakohi approached Clara, studying her with those bright, intelligent eyes. You watched well, the old woman said in surprisingly clear English. Respectful. Not frightened. It was beautiful, Clara replied honestly. Thank you for allowing me to attend. Nakohi nodded once, then handed Clara a small bundle of herbs. For tea. Helps woman's monthly pain. She pointed to Clara's abdomen with uncanny accuracy, making Clara blush. 3 days from now, you need. As the day drew to a close, Clara sat outside Cass's wickiup, helping to prepare the evening meal. Little Tarak had gradually warmed to her, now happily playing with a wooden toy while sitting in her lap. Across the village, Clara saw Tahoe returning with several other warriors. He spotted her, nodding once in greeting but continuing to the council lodge without approaching. His duties to the tribe clearly took precedence over checking on her welfare. He is important man, Casa commented, noticing Clara's gaze. War leader but also peace speaker. Understands white ways, Apache ways. He saved my life, Clara said simply. Casa's eyes softened as she watched her son playing comfortably with Clara. Maybe you saved something too, she said enigmatically, returning to her cooking. As stars appeared in the darkening sky, Clara realized with surprise that she felt more at peace in this strange place than she had since her parents' death years ago. The constant fear of the past weeks had receded, replaced by the simple rhythm of useful work and human connection. 2 weeks passed. each day bringing Clara deeper into the rhythms of Apache life. Her hands grew calloused from daily work, her skin tanned by the desert sun, her movements more assured as she learned the ways of her hosts. The white buckskin dress, once stiff and formal, had softened with wear, conforming to her body like a second skin. She sat by the stream with several women, scraping the flesh from a deer hide using a stone tool Nara had helped her craft. Her technique had improved considerably since her first awkward attempts. Nearby, Tarak played with other children, occasionally running to Clara for reassurance before darting back to his games. Tahoe had been absent for 3 days, leading a hunting party into the mountains. Clara found herself watching the village perimeter more often than she cared to admit, anticipating his return. Their interactions since arriving had been limited, brief conversations, formal acknowledgments as they passed in the village. Yet something unspoken had grown between them, a quiet understanding that needed no words. The peaceful scene at the stream shattered as a rider galloped into the village center, his horse lathered with sweat. The women instantly gathered their children, alert for danger. Clara recognized the rider as Kitso, one of the young scouts. He shouted in Apache, his voice carrying urgency that needed no translation. Clara saw warriors emerging from wickiups, grabbing weapons, women hurrying children toward the shelter of the nearby rocks. Nara appeared at Clara's side, gripping her arm. Come. Quickly. What's happening? Clara asked, already running alongside her back toward the village. Mexican bandits, Nara replied grimly. Many. They have crossed into our territory with many guns. A cold dread settled in Clara's stomach. Vicente. Yes, they camp openly at the southern pass. Not hiding. They want us to see them. In the village center, warriors gathered around Chief Nantai and Nakohi. Clara spotted Miguel among them, his face lined with worry. These past weeks, he had begun teaching Clara how to speak to the spirits through the smoke, treating her with a grudging respect that had gradually warmed. Clara pushed through the crowd, needing to hear what was happening. Nara stayed close, translating in hurried whispers. 8 men with rifles, Nara reported. Led by Vicente, they sent message with Kitso, who they captured and released. They demand the white girl be given to them, or they will attack the village. This is my fault, Clara said, her voice breaking. I've brought this danger to your people. Nara squeezed her hand. No, Vicente brings danger. He chooses this path. The council lodge filled with warriors and elders. Clara waited outside, sick with worry and guilt. After what seemed an eternity, Nantai emerged and approached her. The bandits want you, he said without preamble. They threaten to burn our village, kill our people if we do not surrender you by sunrise tomorrow. Clara straightened her back. Then I will go to them. I won't let your people die because of me. Nantai raised his hand. This is not your decision alone. The council speaks now. Come. Inside the lodge, Clara found herself once more before the tribal council. Nakohi regarded her with unexpected compassion in her ancient eyes. You would give yourself to save us? The medicine woman asked in her clear English. Yes, Clara replied without hesitation. You've shown me kindness. I won't repay that with bringing death to your door. Nakohi translated for the others. A murmur of approval ran through the council. Your courage honors us, Nantai said, but we do not give up those under our protection. This Vicente threatens our sovereignty. If we yield now, others will believe they can demand anything from the Apache. A commotion outside interrupted them. Moments later, Tahoe strode into the lodge, his face grim with purpose. He had clearly ridden hard to return, alerted by scouts about the bandits' ultimatum. He spoke rapidly in Apache, his words causing vigorous debate among the council members. Clara understood nothing, but the intensity in Tahoe's voice needed no translation. Finally, he turned to her. Vicente will not take you, he stated flatly. My people will not surrender you. I can't let them die for me, Clara protested. They would not die for you, Tahoe corrected her. They would die for their honor. for their right to decide their own actions without threat from outsiders. Nantai rose, his decision apparently made. We prepare for battle. The women, children, and elders will retreat to the mountain caves. The warriors will defend our land. As the council dispersed, a young warrior burst into the lodge, holding a flaming arrow. He spoke rapidly to Nantai, who turned to Clara with grave eyes. Vicente grows impatient. He has sent this as warning. The chief held up the arrow. Such arrows were used by the Spanish to burn Apache villages in my grandfather's time. Vicente knows our history and mocks it. Tahoe's face hardened. This changes nothing except timing. We move the vulnerable to safety now, tonight. The village erupted into organized chaos as families gathered essential possessions. Clara helped Casa bundle supplies and prepare Tarak for the journey to the caves. The boy clung to Clara, sensing the adult's fear. You come with us? Casa asked, hefting a water skin over her shoulder. Clara looked to Tahoe, who stood giving instructions to the warriors. Their eyes met across the distance, and in that moment, Clara knew her place was not fleeing to the caves. No, she said, straightening her shoulders. I stay and fight. Nara, overhearing, gripped Clara's arm. You cannot. You are not warrior. This fight exists because of me, Clara replied firmly. I won't hide while others face danger I brought. As darkness fell, the evacuation began. A silent procession of women, children, and elders moving like shadows toward the mountain trails. Clara stood with the warriors, watching until the last of them disappeared into the night. Tahoe approached, his expression unreadable. You should be with them. I should be here, Clara countered. This is my fight too. Pre-dawn light cast the village in ghostly shadows as 26 Apache warriors made final preparations for battle. Clara stood among a small group of women who had refused evacuation, wives and sisters of warriors who would support the fight by reloading rifles, tending wounds, and if necessary, taking up weapons themselves. Tahoe moved through the village, checking defensive positions with quiet authority. He had spent most of the night drilling Clara and the other women on emergency medical treatment, showing them how to extract bullets and cauterize wounds. His hands had lingered briefly on Clara's as he demonstrated bandaging techniques, his dark eyes meeting hers with unspoken emotion. They will come from the south, Tahoe explained to the assembled defenders, using a stick to draw a map in the dirt. Vicente is no fool. He will expect an ambush, so we give him what he expects, but not where he expects it. The warriors nodded, understanding the strategy without need for elaboration. Years of conflict with Mexican soldiers and rival tribes had honed their tactical thinking. Clara watched from the periphery, clutching the knife Nara had given her before departing for the caves. For protection, Nara had said, and for courage. The waiting was the hardest part. As the sun breached the horizon, bathing the village in golden light, every defender remained motionless at their assigned position. Clara helped Nakohi, who had also refused evacuation, prepare herbal poultices for the wounds that would inevitably come. You are afraid, the old woman observed. Yes, Clara admitted. Nakohi nodded approvingly. Good. Fear keeps you alive if you don't let it rule you. The first shot came without warning, a single rifle report that echoed across the valley. One of the Apache sentries had spotted movement and fired a warning. They come, Nakohi said calmly, continuing her work. Minutes later, riders appeared on the ridge south of the village. 8 men led by Vicente. Even at this distance, Clara recognized his distinctive posture, the silver embroidery on his jacket catching the morning sun. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but her hands remained steady as she helped Nakohi gather their medical supplies. Vicente's voice carried clearly in the still morning air. Send out the girl and we leave in peace. Refuse, and we burn every wickiup to the ground. No response came from the village, which appeared deserted from the bandits' vantage point. The Apache warriors had concealed themselves too well to be spotted. Vicente conferred briefly with his men, then gestured them forward. They advanced cautiously, rifles ready, spreading out to approach the village from multiple angles. Clara glimpsed Miguel among them, riding slightly behind Vicente. Even from this distance, the conflict on his young face was evident. He scanned the seemingly empty village with apprehension. The bandits reached the outer wickiups, still meeting no resistance. Vicente's confidence visibly grew as he moved closer to the village center. Now, Tahoe's voice commanded softly. The trap was sprung. Apache warriors emerged from hiding places throughout the village, from beneath brush piles, from behind wickiups, from shallow pits covered with woven mats. The first volley of rifle fire and arrows struck with devastating precision, dropping 2 bandits instantly. Chaos erupted as the surviving bandits scrambled for cover, returning fire wildly. Vicente bellowed orders, trying to organize a retreat, but the Apache warriors had encircled them, cutting off escape routes. Clara and Nakohi crouched in their designated shelter, a reinforced wickiup near the stream, waiting to receive wounded. They didn't wait long. 2 warriors were brought in with bullet wounds, one to the shoulder, one to the leg. Working with focused intensity, Clara applied pressure to the leg wound while Nakohi treated the shoulder. Outside, the battle raged, shouts, gunfire, and the distinctive twang of bowstrings creating a terrifying symphony. "More bandits!" someone shouted in Apache. From the east. Clara's head snapped up. Vicente had split his forces, sending a second group to attack from the undefended eastern approach where the women and children had evacuated hours earlier. 3 bandits on horseback thundered into the village from the east, firing as they came. 1 Apache warrior fell, then another. The carefully planned defense was unraveling. Without conscious thought, Clara grabbed her knife and darted from the medical wickiup, racing toward the fallen warriors. She would drag them to safety, save them if she could. A horse reared directly in her path. Clara looked up to find Vicente himself looming above her, his silver-handled pistol aimed at her heart. His face twisted in a triumphant smile. "There you are, Nina," he said almost gently. "You've led me quite a chase." Clara froze, the knife suddenly feeling inadequate in her hand. "Drop it," Vicente ordered, gesturing with his pistol. Slowly, Clara lowered the knife, her mind racing for options. "Good girl. Now come here." Vicente extended his free hand. A war cry split the air as Tahoe charged from between 2 wickiups. His war club swinging in a deadly arc. Vicente barely managed to turn his horse, the club missing him by inches. He fired his pistol, the bullet grazing Tahoe's arm but not stopping his attack. Clara seized the moment of distraction, diving for her knife and rolling beneath a nearby wickiup. She emerged on the other side, in time to see Tahoe and Vicente locked in desperate combat, the bandit leader having been pulled from his horse by Tahoe's second attack. They grappled in the dust, Vicente's pistol lost in the struggle, both men fighting with the ferocity of wolves. Vicente was heavier, but Tahoe was quicker, his lifetime of physical conditioning evident in every movement. A sickening crack echoed as Vicente landed a powerful blow to Tahoe's temple. The Apache warrior staggered, momentarily dazed. Vicente seized the advantage, drawing a knife from his boot and lunging forward. "No!" Clara screamed, throwing herself into motion. She struck from behind, driving her knife into Vicente's shoulder, the same shoulder Tahoe's arrow had wounded weeks earlier. The bandit leader howled in pain, whirling to face this new threat, his knife slashing wildly. Tahoe recovered his senses just in time to see Vicente advancing on Clara. With a roar of protective fury, he launched himself at the bandit, catching him in a tackle that sent both men crashing into a cooking fire. Smoke cleared from the village center as the last echoes of gunfire faded into silence. The battle had lasted less than an hour, yet its effects would endure for generations in Apache memory. Clara knelt beside Tahoe, carefully cleaning the burns on his arms where he had rolled through the cooking fire during his final struggle with Vicente. The bandit leader lay dead nearby, his body covered with a blanket, killed not by the fire but by his own knife, which Tahoe had turned against him in their desperate combat. Of Vicente's 8 men, 5 were dead, 2 wounded, and 1 Miguel had surrendered early in the fight, refusing to fire on the Apache. The young bandit now sat under guard, his fate yet to be decided by the tribal council. The Apache had suffered as well. 3 warriors dead, 7 wounded, though none mortally. As Clara worked on Tahoe's injuries, Nakohe moved among the other wounded, her ancient hands steady and sure as she applied her healing knowledge. "You fought well," Tahoe said quietly, wincing as Clara bandaged his burned forearm. "Like an Apache woman." "I fought for my life," Clara replied. "And for yours." Their eyes met, something unspoken passing between them. The shared danger had stripped away pretense, leaving only truth in its wake. By midday, riders had been sent to bring the women and children back from the caves. The bodies of the dead bandits were buried far from the village, while the Apache prepared their fallen warriors for the traditional sky burial on wooden platforms in the high places. When Nantai convened the council that evening, Clara was summoned to attend, along with Tahoe and, surprisingly, Miguel. The young bandit knelt before the elders, his head bowed in submission. "You fought with the bandits," Nantai stated, "yet you did not fire on our people. Why?" Miguel raised his eyes. "I never wanted to be a bandit. Vicente found me orphaned, starving. He gave me food, but the price was obedience." "Yet you helped the girl escape," Nakohe observed. "Yes." Miguel glanced at Clara. "I saw in her what I once was, taken against her will, forced to serve. I could not save my sister from such a fate, but I could try to save her." The council deliberated in low voices, then Nantai delivered their judgment. "Miguel, son of none, you may remain among us until the spring. Work hard, learn our ways. Then you must choose, stay and become Apache in heart, or go with our blessing to find your own path." Relief washed over the young man's face. "Gracias," he whispered. "Thank you." When Miguel had been led away, Nantai turned to Clara. "Clara Bennett, you came to us as Tahoe's rescued one. Now you have helped rescue our village. The debt between us is balanced." Clara nodded, unsure what this meant for her future. "The question remains," Nantai continued. "What path lies before you now?" Clara glanced at Tahoe, who watched her with uncharacteristic tension in his normally composed features. "I have no family," she said slowly. "No home to return to. The life I knew ended when Vicente attacked the station. There are white settlements," Nantai suggested. "Places where your kind would welcome you." Clara shook her head. "I don't want to be merely welcomed. I want to belong." She straightened her shoulders. "I wish to stay, if you will have me." A murmur ran through the council. Nakohe leaned forward, her bright eyes searching Clara's face. "This is no small thing you ask," the medicine woman said. "Our ways are not your ways. The life is hard, the comforts few." "I've lived among you these weeks," Clara replied. "I've learned to work as you work, to value what you value. I can learn more." "And Tahoe?" Nakohe asked pointedly. "What of him in your decision?" Clara felt heat rise in her cheeks but met the old woman's gaze steadily. "He saved my life. He showed me a different way to see the world. If he—" She hesitated, then continued with determination. "If he wishes me to remain, that would bring me joy. If not, I still ask to stay among the people." All eyes turned to Tahoe. He rose slowly, his burned arm bandaged, his face solemn. "When I found Clara, I acted from memory of my sister's fate," he said. "I did not expect—" He paused, searching for words. "I did not expect to find someone who would fight beside me, who would risk her life for our people. Someone whose courage matches any warrior's." He approached Clara, taking her hand in his. "I wish her to stay not as a guest, but as my wife if she will have me." The council chamber fell silent. Clara's heart thundered in her chest as she looked up at Tahoe's face, seeing there all the emotions he had kept carefully guarded until now. "Yes," she said simply. "I will." Nantai nodded, satisfaction evident in his weathered features. "Then it shall be. When the moon is full again, you will be joined by our customs. Until then, Clara will continue to learn our ways, and Tahoe will prepare for a husband's responsibilities." As they left the council lodge, the village was alive with activity. Families reunited, damages repaired, life continuing despite the day's violence. Casa approached with Tarak, who broke free from his mother's hand to run to Clara. She scooped him up, his small arms wrapping tightly around her neck. "He missed you," Casa said, smiling for the first time since Clara had known her. "I missed him too," Clara replied, her voice thick with emotion. That night, as stars blanketed the sky above the village, Clara sat beside Tahoe near a small fire outside his wickiup. Between them lay a beautifully woven blanket, the wedding blanket Nako he had begun creating for the ceremony to come. "Are you certain?" Tahoe asked quietly. "The path will not be easy." Clara touched the silver locket at her throat, the last remnant of her former life. Inside were her parents' faces, a connection to her past she would always cherish. "I'm certain," she replied, looking up at the vast desert sky. "This is where I belong now." Tahoe's hand found hers, their fingers intertwining as naturally as two streams joining to form a river. Above them, a shooting star traced a brilliant path across the heavens. "A sign," Tahoe murmured, "that even the spirits approved of paths that crossed boundaries to find their true destination."